Hygiene. I mentioned earlier the barracks are slightly deceptive because everything you see in there today is very fresh and very clean. It should be said that for quite a lot of the history of the concentration camp, the barracks actually were very fresh and clean because this was a form of torture. Prisoners lived in terror of daily barrack inspections. This was an opportunity for SS guards to find an excuse to inflict severe physical punishment upon prisoners. One example I can give you, I remember reading in the memoirs of one survivor. He told the story of the entire population of a particular barrack returning from their day's hard labour to discover that during their absence SS guards had entered the barrack and trashed everything and sprayed mud and dirt from their boots all over the wooden floor of the barrack, and the exhausted prisoners then ordered to climb down on their hands and knees and lick the wooden floor clean, as an example of what life could be like. But by the end it was the opposite. By the end the barracks were lice infested, filth-ridden hellholes. Now bring all of it together: overcrowding, overwork, starvation, appalling conditions of hygiene. What you get is disease. Most particularly, for example, typhus, which at points would simply sweep through the entire compound. At one point, during the Second World War, during the major outbreak of typhus, you had an average of 200 prisoners dying every day. Part of the daily morning routine when slopping out in the morning was for prisoners to take the corpses of those who had died during the night and bring them outside onto the square here to be counted. Being dead was not an excuse for missing roll call. Also, I mentioned earlier, the final winter of the war was one of the worst winters in Europe of the 20th century. A starving person cannot retain body heat, freezing to death. It became very common. Prisoners would die in their sleep at night time. And by the end, it really began to get out of control. I mentioned earlier, towards the end of the war, the SS began to evacuate prisoners here from other concentration camps. They were opening the gates and simply shoving them through by the thousand. And this is what you see at the room at the very end here. They had to redesign everything. What you see in the final room was known as the endless beds, the never-ending beds. What you see in that room does not look like anything designed for human beings. It's like looking at shelves in a warehouse. Huge wooden bunks with no partitions whatsoever in 3 levels, half the width of the room. So they simply could shove them in like sardines, side by side, head to foot, to make more room. Many of them squeezed in so tightly they couldn't even turn in the night. I've read stories of, in individual barracks, prisoners being woken from their sleep in the middle of the night and ordered to climb out of the bed and turn round to the other side of their body and climb back in again. Blood circulation. By the end, it got so out of control that even the SS began to give up. As Allied armies drew closer every day, our SS guards began to evacuate the healthier prisoners and send them out to satellite camps. And what you had here, they simply dumped, all in the barracks running all the way to the bottom, they simply dumped the ill, the disease-ridden, the dying, closed the doors and left them lying there to rot.